This is the Aftermarket Radio Network.
Welcome, everyone, to yet another episode of Diagnosing the Aftermarket A to Z. I'm Matt Fonslow, and there is no way that you came from my loins. Soon as I get home, first thing I'm going to do is punch your mama in the mouth. All right, tonight I have the distinct pleasure of having Elijah McMillan on, owner of Second Mile Repair in Canadian Lakes, Michigan. How's it going, Elijah?
It's going great. It's a pleasure to be here to talk with you tonight, Matt.
Well, we haven't got very far, so you better save that till you know for sure.
Good point, but
if it was worth it, you might change your mind.
Expectation is high.
You might decide, like, on second thought, this wasn't so great.
Yeah, well, I guess maybe I should have saved that comment for the end.
That's what I would have done. Save the compliments for the end. You can be really critical at first, like, I'm not sure if this is such a good idea. And then at the end, you can be like, okay, this is pretty not so wasteful. Something like that.
Sure.
Well, before we get going here, let's take a moment to thank our sponsor, NAPA Autotech Training. Let NAPA Autotech's Build-A-Tech program, like Build-A-Bear, help you turn your general technician into a moneymaker for your shop. Make them a profitable member of your team. Go to napaautotech.com for more details. All right, man. It sounds like you're getting into a little bit of a new endeavor.
Yeah, so I guess with probably a year ago, I programmed my first key before keys were such a thing, because obviously with the recent NASTIF changes, everyone's talking about it. But I've always had an interest, as long as I've been in the automotive career, I've had an interest in programming modules and diagnostics. I mean, keys to me is a natural offshoot of that, if you will. Recently, I guess it kind of started my first key tool I bought when I needed to do a repair on a Chrysler to reseed the skim module on a truck and fix the client's truck. I was like, I kind of like this. So went from that, did some more research, ended up with another tool, asked some questions, ordering the wrong key fobs for things. Because it definitely can be a complicated thing. I mean, I have a Ford here right now that has two exact key fobs. One is European, one is American. And as far as I know, my car is from America, but has a European immobilizer. The key, they look the same. They have the same FCC ID, and they don't program the American one. Anyway, that's definitely been a journey, but I made the decision shortly after NASTIF made their announcement to go ahead and get signed up for that program, since, I mean, I don't want to be the guy that can't program a body module or something and has to wait 6 weeks to get approved and tell my client I didn't have the proper licensing. So that just looks really bad. I was like, well, I kind of live my life in business as like, you have to pay to play. And it's hard as a small operator because everything costs a lot and you don't have duplications of yourself to lower the cost. But it's something I'm hopeful to expand business with, even just, asking clients if they have a spare key and just really expanding that side of my business, because it's something that you can do with less space. And if you become good at it, it's definitely a neat niche to be part of.
Yeah, it's like you said, if you're in the module replacement and programming, a lot of times it's forced. You have to program keys. And certain car lines, that's not such a big deal. You can do a lot of it with, should we just say, heavy hitter scan tools?
Yeah.
The Snap-ons, the Autels, the Launch, the Top Duns, whatever else, iScans, Autoland Scientech products. There's a lot of tools that will do a fair number of key programming. So you program the module with a JBox, and then maybe, depending on the system and the situation, you might be able to just use the JBox to program the keys or add the keys. Sometimes you need your VSP, Vehicle Security Professional license. If you don't have that, then the aftermarket tools a lot of times can do that without that. I don't know how long that's going to last. Good, bad, or otherwise. I don't know how long it's going to last. Yeah. So how was your experience getting your VSP?
It took 2 days. I think a lot of I guess for me, I was a little worried about it because I shared the post on Facebook and got like 60 comments, which I'm not really a star on Facebook. Nobody really knows me, and it wasn't about me. It was just, for some reason, they all commented on my share rather than someone else's share. Reading it, I was like, wow, there's like a lot of emotion and a lot of people are really getting hurt by this. And I was like, ultimately, I just love doing automotive. I love the trade. And if it's another license, I'm going to figure out how to charge accordingly so that at the end of the day, it doesn't take money out of my pocket. And I thought about it for maybe a month after that. And I was like, decided to pull the trigger on it. I had to call my insurance company and up some things there. As soon as they had that, I sent that over to NASTF, and it was proved almost instantly. They said it could take up to 6 weeks, and it didn't. I think a lot of it was more just people like, oh, there's more restriction on this, and just the reaction of that. But I had to use my VSP the other night to program a 2020 Ford Bronco key. As far as I know, there's no other way to do that. Someone was just telling me about a key that they're releasing that might be able to, but it's something that isn't, it's not commonplace to be able to do it with an IM 508 or something.
You start getting into the newer vehicles, it's hit or miss. Sometimes aftermarket, well, honestly, sometimes with the OE tool, you end up doing it a couple times to get it to take.
Right.
But I've had my VSP now for a few years. And yeah, that was, I think, I want to say it was a Ford Fusion I couldn't add keys to with the factory tool. That's back when you had to kind of fax everything in, and it did take a while. So now with everything pretty much online, and it seems to me that for the insurance component, you yourself aren't necessarily all that involved. They reach out to your insurance company to make sure that you have the right insurance coverage and that they have the right documentation. And then once that's taken care of, I think it's rather quick.
My insurance just sent an email to them with the proper policy, and they approved it just like that. And the interesting thing that I didn't know, this was the first time for me to use the VSP. So I went through with the whole process, and then there's still a D1 that you have to fill out, and you really got to get that done. Definitely change a process in the future to start with that, just so you don't end up getting bad marks or getting your account revoked when you don't fill it out. But
I printed out a few sheets for my service advisors. You could do it on whatever you want. Is it Google Notes or whatever? Or there's so many different options that at the PC, at a point of sale computer, that your service advisors or customer service reps could easily pull it up. Google Docs, something like that. What you all need, whatever the situation is. If it's just, they already have a key that works, you're just duplicating a key. You may not necessarily need your VSP. When you do, especially in like an all keys loss situation, you're going to have to go get a key code, or you're going to have to go get a PIN code, and you're going to have to use your VSP credentials. It's nice for them to have that sheet to just bounce down, and I need photos, ID of some sort, driver's license usually, proof of ownership, insurance card, title, proof of purchase, something of that nature. And then the vehicle information, namely like color, which sometimes you can get through VIN decoding, sometimes you can't. But since the D1 went on to online, it is so much nicer than before. So much nicer. It's really quick. It's great.
Not really a big bump in the road to really, for me, it's not. And I even have at least one other shop owner in this area that's been reaching out to me about me doing keys for him because they don't really want to get into it. So I've also been looking at getting a cutting machine. I don't have one yet.
Oh, you don't have a key cutting? So not to derail you here, but you said you're like your first tool so the first key you programmed, what did you use for that? Did you already have a tool?
It was a GM key with the GM OE tool, and then I just used the J-Box. It was my brother's truck, actually, that one was. He had a immobilizer full. I didn't actually program a new key. I think I did an all keys lost, and then we learned them to fix the truck or something. It's been a minute since I did it.
And then you bought a key programming tool after that?
Yeah, so I have Auto immobilizer and a tool that I bought to do that Chrysler because it was kind of like, it was like the same price as a couple days of the Chrysler tool. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I can.
So that was the KM100 or the?
I have one of those too now. The first one I got was the IM1, which is from Autofix, but it's basically the IM 508. It's just thinner.
Oh, okay. I know what you're saying now. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No problem.
Yeah, that worked. Nice.
Yeah, that was definitely a good just realization of even the profitability of being in that. I mean, because the dealer didn't want to get that truck to start. No one wanted to get that truck to start. I literally ordered the module, copied the PIN code with the tool. I won't say numbers because somebody will get offended with me, but like it was a very profitable job. And I was like, yeah, like this is something no one wanted to do it. It was an old farmer. Like even the truck, like it's probably like he wanted to work on it himself, but he can't do that. And that function is something that he'll pay you a lot of brake jobs to do.
Nice. And then you followed that up with more tools, or?
Right now I have just the key specific ones would just be the KM100 and that one right now at this point.
KM100 is pretty capable. And it sounds like the Autofix that must be somewhat similar to like a 508.
Yeah, I think as I understand it, that's kind of what they're doing with it, is making it like the 508, and then they have the fancier Autofix one that's like the 608. There's a lot of duplication between that and the KM100. They do a lot of the same things. But the KM100 has it's easier to do to ID a transmitter in the hole on there than it is with the other one.
Yeah, and you can test the halo or the transceiver.
Yes, exactly. And it's a great little tool. But that's something, I mean, obviously, if you're going to get into this more, it's definitely, that's the one that you see guys that buy it and they get on Facebook Marketplace and try to sell keys for $50. It's definitely not an all-encompassing tool. But like for the Ford the other day, I used my VCM3. So there's always OE interfaces too.
Well, the Autofix, I guess I'm going to use the word program, like the Autel Universal Smart Keys. Do you know if they'll work on that?
I don't know.
The KM100 will. It probably came with a few in the kit you bought, and then they sell manufacturer-specific ones too that look very much like the OE key, and then you basically tell the key what it's going in, and then it kind of programs it, if you will, the key itself, and then you can register it to the car. I've had pretty good luck with those, knock on wood.
Okay.
Proxy keys.
They sent a couple with the KM100, and I was playing with them just with one of our loaners here and didn't get them to work. But this loaner, it's a weird car. It's the one I ended up having to order a Euro key fob for, so I think it's not going to use a universal key, and it was probably just me. But I figured I had some time. I was like, I want to learn about this. So
What kind of car?
It's a Ford C-Max, so it's kind of an Escape, only it's plug-in hybrid. So it looks like an Escape, kind of. It's an absolute nightmare. The worst lemon car. I mean, other day I took off to go to training. There's like a monthly tech training, among other things that I try to go to and whatever. I pulled out in a rainstorm, and before I made it to the first crossroad, all the lights were on the dash. This thing has been totally flawless for months and months and months. When I get time to scan it, there's 5 modules that won't communicate.
Oh, jeez.
I assume it sucked some water in somewhere, and they're all hybrid related and just completely shut down. And it's something that'll be fun to troubleshoot. It just sucks when it's your own car because you're not billing $170 an hour to test it.
Now you're in the market for a key cutting machine.
Yeah, and I'm looking at obviously Triton is nice. I was talking with someone recently, and they said they're coming out with a mobile version of that that's more entry-level price-wise. That might be something I'll get. We'll see. Because of my location, it isn't like I'm going to do 100 keys a month. So I want to kind of not put too much in that side of tooling before I know how many keys I can actually do. But I do think that once I get the machine, that it's probably likely that a lot of people don't have spare keys. And it definitely could be a good added perk to offer the client.
I'm not kidding you. Just that piece of white paper typed out on Word that, did you know we cut keys? Sits right on the back side of the customer service rep's monitor. It's right there for the customer to see, right at eye level as they're picking up their car or paying for their bill or whatever. And that has sold a ton of keys. A ton of keys. It's mind-boggling sometimes that they're just there and like, this is the only key I have. Or my husband's vehicle or my kid's vehicle, that only has a key. And then the response is not pressure. It's not pressure at all. It's just, usually a lot less expensive to just make a second key when you already have a key that works than it is to wait for that key to get lost. And then you usually got to get it towed in, and there's some hoops to jump through to get the key, cut it right, program a key and probably more than one to the vehicle. A lot of times we can just copy this one, and depending on the vehicle and all that, we don't have to get in a lot of details of that, but Just adding a key is usually ends up being less expensive than when you lose the keys. That has sold a lot of keys. A lot.
Is it something that I've kind of thought about with pricing keys? Obviously, dealers nearby, they're always selling keys at almost a loss, it seems like. With certain things like GM is your friend, because I mean, the fobs are so cheap right from GM that you can buy the wholesale fob and program it and give them a GM fob. But if they go in there to get the fob, it's going to be probably sub $100 or maybe $150, but it's not going to be like your typical $250 key either.
That's not what I've seen. We get a lot of work from both from the dealers, because the assumption is that the dealers can do it all. And that's not true. Some of them can. Some of them absolutely can. A lot of them don't. A lot of them do not have a key cutting machine on premises, or they have something old like I think they called them like a punch, where they'd set it up, the bitting. So they'd set the key in there and then they'd bring it down almost like
an arbor press?
A press. Yeah. And they would slice the key. But these are all the outside cut style, not high security or laser cut keys. That they can do those. They can do the outside single or double-sided outside key cutting, but they can't do the high security or laser cutting. So then they order them from a warehouse or whatever, and then the warehouse or the distributor cuts the key on there and sends it. But that's a time delay. So if you go into the dealers and just with a flyer or something and say, go to the parts department, go to the service department, both of them, because they don't always talk, and just say, hey, you know what? I'm doing keys. I can cut them. I'm willing to help you out, get you out of a jam. If you need something cut that day, just you can get the key to me or whatever. What you find out then is if they do not have a key cutting machine on premises, that they will order the key blank and they can have it next day or sometimes that day, depending on the situation, of course. And then they run it over to you and you cut it quick and then they go and program it. And it's nice, just nice little steady income. And then when they know you can cut keys for older vehicles, so you can't assume that you can't assume that the dealer can deal with older vehicles of their own car lines. So now they know that you can. They send them your way. Or the used car lot, the car comes in, it only has a key, they want to sell it. Hey, Elijah, how much for a key? It works its way. And I also went into the hardware stores, and we only had two places that do that. And they have their own key cutting machine. They have looks like a kind of like a rebadged, I think it's like an advanced diagnostics programmer, but they have limited capability with that. And they're not going to mess around, right? They're going to go out and try it. If it doesn't work, they're out. And then they'll be like, I'll sell you the key for whatever. Or maybe they don't upcharge for the programming. I have no idea. Whatever. They send that stuff to you. And the certain car lines, Euro cars, they want nothing to do with it. Boom, take it to you. If you're kind of the only game in town or one of just a few, and I'm not saying I'm cutting keys every day. There are weeks where I do, or there's something involving keys every day of the week or multiple times a week or multiple times per day. And then might go a week with only doing one or two. I've only really been hard at it for a couple of years, 3 years, I suppose. So it's just kind of growing.
Do you keep the common fobs in stock?
Oh, yeah. Constantly adding to the inventory. If it seems like it's going to be a common vehicle, they want a key, I'll order 3. 2 for stock, 1 for stock, depending on what it is, right? Ford, you're never going to have less than 2 of the keys. Never. Some of the GMs, you need to have a couple of those, right? Because they need 2 keys. I've hit or miss. I've hit some really good where they move really good. Honda keys move really good. Toyota keys, oddly enough, move really good. GM and Ford keys really move. Certain Chryslers, like the Fobics, they really move. But I started out, I had a rash of Hyundai Kias. So I ordered a bunch. Made sense. I don't think we've touched them for over a year. So yeah, but you just keep adding to the inventory. I went hard in with the Autel universal keys. So I think everything they've got. And I've just been really happy with the quality of them. And especially the OE ones, the ones that are
mimicking the OE.
Yeah, Honda specific, whatever, because they got the blade in them ready to go. The universal ones, the keys work, the quality is pretty good. but they don't really come with a mechanical blade. And what you do to have to put a mechanical blade in it's a loss. It's a major loss of income, loss of profit.
Gotcha. Those work on a pretty wide range of vehicles.
Yeah, and they're getting better, but I've been happy with them. They typically work on like the heavy hitters. I can't say that I've done one on any Euros, so I don't want to say whether they will work or not. I haven't even tried. I haven't had, offhand, I can't think of when I've even had the opportunity. I think some coworkers, the ones that have some Euro cars, all of theirs are still bladed keys or slot keys. They're not proxy, so I can't even practice on one of theirs just to see what would happen. One of these days I'll see one and just see what happens. Typically Euro is not doesn't play well with universal type stuff.
It seems like there's, especially with Volkswagen, like there's a real problem with that. I've seen a couple of different case studies from other shops where they're getting a car in that's dead with a handful of aftermarket keys that have been made for it 2 weeks prior or something. I saw one from a mutual acquaintance on Facebook, and then recently someone reached out to me and they're like, what do you do with this car? And I'm like, you probably need to try coating the cluster. And he's like, you can't do that. I said, yes, you can. And it was just like this. It was like another one of those situations that it came with all these, the locksmith had just been to it and he hadn't adapted it properly. And he texted me later. He's like, I adapted it and now it starts. It's like, so those are definitely something, just knowing that before I would even think about doing one, I'd probably be getting an OE fob for that.
For Volkswagen Audi, Otis comes in really handy, but you have to have OE keys. You have to have a dealer key. If you have aftermarket keys or dealer keys, a lot of the aftermarket tools will add either. But if you start running into problems, a lot of times it just seems like if you just get a dealer key and use Otis and you're good to go.
Roll with it, yeah.
But it's like everything. It's like over time, stuff just gets better and better. The aftermarket stuff.
Yeah, for sure. That's exciting. Which I don't have a full Otis subscription for the shop, but I did get all the registration steps finished so that if I need to use it, I can. We don't do enough VW Audi stuff, but I had one recently that was pulling my hair out and I was pretty sure I was going to have to use it. So I went through there because they have to approve you too. It's a little bit of a process and make sure you're all. So I went through all their hoops. So now it's pretty easy to spool it up and use it if I need to. So it's good. I mean, you need OE tools. That's just the way it is. Like there's certain things.
I mean, if you're into programming, that's kind of game, set, match. Not to get off topic or anything, but it's depending on the car line. Sometimes there's information in the tool that isn't really readily available elsewhere, or certain tests that multiple aftermarket tools just won't run an active test or bidirectional control or onboard test, something like that. A special function, and freaking OE tool does it, no problem.
Right.
Or the data PID is messed up on the aftermarket tools. The OE tool either has a PID you need that it wasn't in the aftermarket tool, or it's reading properly. And don't get me wrong, it's not like there isn't times where the OE tool's jacked and the aftermarket tool's what gets it done too, right? That happens. So you can't win. You just need it all.
Exactly.
That's the answer, is you need all of them. Everything in there is. Then you'll be able to do everything.
Yeah. It's just the biggest thing is just knowing how to play that game profitably. You get a lot of people in the different shop groups and stuff that are asking about this one silver bullet scanner. And I used to be that way. I got my Varius Edge, or my Varius before the Varius Edge. And then once I got full-time into automotive repair, I realized that wasn't going to cut it. But since then, I've been on a binge of buying scan tools, and I have to tell myself, Elijah, you can't buy scan tools this month.
That's a bad month, man.
Unless you know that tool is going to fix a specific car, and it's one of those things where maybe it's been to 3 other shops, and the job is going to, sometimes that happens where you can buy a tool with that in mind, but it's something I enjoy tools, so buying tools is almost an addiction to me, so really got to watch that.
What car lines do you see the most of?
So I started out specializing with hybrid repair, so I try to attract hybrids, which are mostly Toyotas, so that the Prius platform I'd be pretty comfortable with. They're also easy to add keys to, so that's great.
Usually really easy.
I mean, if you have trouble I found recently with more than one that you just have to like reset the whole system. But usually after you reset the whole system, they come around. I've even had like bad failed key fobs come in where they only work when you touch them to the start button. Usually you change a battery and you're good, but I've had totally bad ones when you can take a key fob and, basically send them out with a working key fob. They came in for an engine replacement and they came out all excited, that their key works now the way it's supposed to. I mean, we of course charged for that. We talked to them about that before we did it, but just as like, while we're at it, we can fix your key. And he's like, sweet, $250. The Prius is definitely my favorite car to work on, but we live in a GM, Ford, Dodge dominated industry, really. There's 3 Equinoxes here right now. And for a shop in the middle of nowhere, that's a record. They all, for 1 week, it's weird how trends go, because you'll be doing Priuses and hybrids, and then the next week, like 2 weeks ago, there was more than like a decent amount of Toyota hybrids, and now it's like Equinoxes, and there was a week of differentials. It's like, I hate this, but...
NAPA Autotech training sessions are being conducted day and night in a town near you. This training caters to every level within your organization, be it a mechanical assistant, a mechanical specialist, a technology specialist, or a driver safety calibration specialist. Imagine a one-stop shop training partner in NAPA Autotech that will lead your team to a path to greatness. Autotech's entry-level Build-A-Tech classes convert the untapped potential of your new hires into money-making mechanical specialists. Autotech's higher-level tech update classes introduce specialists to the world of ever-changing technologies, which prevents your shop from getting technologically stagnant. Remember, if you're not moving forward, you're falling behind. And, turning to the front of the store, the Autotech Service Advisor class is an awesome way to hone your client advocate skill set, ultimately benefiting the customer through an improved vehicle repair experience. But it doesn't stop there. Imagine an electric vehicle class that takes your specialist well past the mundane, yet necessary safety topics. Well, it's here. Autotech's EV Ready training is a week-long curriculum that takes participants through a hands-on experience involving hybrids and electric vehicles. The session kicks off with the use of PPE and proper tooling while touching on required OSHA regulations. Then, the students dive into the lab vehicles to gain knowledge of the common high-voltage components on EV and hybrid vehicles and their function. Attendees will be taken on a path exposing them to different electric vehicle manufacturers to compare component form and location. Additionally, information about Level 1 and Level 2 charging systems will be included, along with a quick look at DC to DC charging. The operation and maintenance of subsystems are explored, including the different modes of Tesla operations, and so much more. So what are you waiting for? Commit to taking your business to the next level with NAPA Autotech training. I repaired the high voltage battery in a Prius Gen 2, but it was like an 04 or 05, maybe an 06. I think it was an 04 though. Gen 2 Prius, 4 bad modules. The other ones I just really couldn't fail, but it's like explaining to the client, I know these are bad. These other 24 modules left over. And to simplify things, we call them cells to the customer.
Right. Normal conversation.
These other ones, these other 24 that we're leaving in there, also, they all have 300,000 miles on them, as far as we can tell. So it's really rolling the dice.
I mean, I don't want to sidetrack this conversation, but if you want to go into the hybrid conversation, how did you warranty that? How did you warranty that battery? Because we've quit doing them. I'm very familiar with doing that. I've had good success with it, except that you get about 12 months or 20,000 miles before another cell fails, like clockwork. And I've done it on a family member who couldn't afford a whole battery, and I told him, we can totally do this for you. And it was little sister, so I just tore it out and did it. But she's going to be calling me soon and saying, I have lights all over my dash, and can I bring my car in? Then we're going to put a whole battery in.
Yeah, we did not. It doesn't have our regular 3 or 36 on it. Can't do it. And explain that. And explain why. Same reason I told you. Or just said that. And they're cool. Like, they get it. And they're hoping. But yeah, it was a much more reduced. It's really like, what if this thing goes sideways in the next few months? So I think we did like a 6-month, 6,000 mile type thing. And really just, if the cells I put in went bad right away, we'd take care of them. Or if I somehow missed one. But I thought I tested them pretty good. The ones I put in, I refreshed a little bit, if you will, cycled them.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, they kind of worry me a little bit where they're coming from, but knock on wood, we've had pretty good luck, and I don't do a ton of it. And when they really get up high in the miles like that, it's just so hard.
Right. The biggest thing is I try to pull for those, and again, this might be another bunny trail, but I try to pull the card of what does it cost to buy a new Prius, and we have a pretty competitive price for putting in a Toyota battery, all warranty for 336. But I'll tell them, like, your old one lasted 10 years. You're gonna get another 10 years if you do it this way. And even on older Gen 2 junk boxes, it's surprising how many people buy.
I'm stunned that she didn't. I got to level with you. I'm stunned that she didn't go with the new Toyota battery.
They're not that expensive.
They weren't that expensive. It was not that expensive. And it was less labor.
Oh, yeah. Way less. Yeah.
And I'm not judging. Whatever. You can't do it. You can't do it. This is what you need to get by. And if it lasts long enough for you to accumulate enough money that if you like, the car was in really good shape, that next time around we can just put the new one in and be done with it. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll get a 1-star review in a few months. I don't know.
I quit doing it, but I could be wrong with that. I just, through studying, it's not like I don't, because people call, they read the forums online and they're like, can you do this? I'm like, I know exactly how that works and I know it inside and out, and I have battery cells lying everywhere, but will I do it for you? No. And this is why. Usually they understand, just because of the size of my shop and just really the goal of never having a comeback. I'm really, really careful with what parts I'm using and what repairs I'm allowing like that to go out. And I've had so few comebacks to this day. I've been thinking about upping my warranty just for a marketing thing because of how good things have been. But it's just about using a lot of OE parts. I mean, some months you spend more at dealers than you do at your aftermarket supplier, and you know that you're giving up on the whole competition thing. Like even the dealer themselves. The dealer has undercut me plenty. Most people don't double check, but whatever. If they want to do that, are they really providing the same job? Definitely not providing the same warranty.
I agree. If I had my way, purely my way, we'd be at 5 years, 60,000 nation. Because when stuff goes bad for us, if it's going to go bad, especially like a workmanship thing, it's within months or weeks or days.
Oftentimes it's bad when you put it on, if it's going to be bad.
Yeah. It's so rare that we're warranting something that's 2 years old. It's so rare that we're working on something again after 4 years. It's like, oh, it's out of warranty. Sorry, I can't help you. It's so rare. I would love to just do that 5 year, 60 nationwide, and whatever. We got to pony up for the final 2 years. I don't see an issue with that.
I've actually got one supplier that's on board with that for me. I actually told him that they're like,
that would be nice. That's great.
I know the one supplier looked at me and said, why would you want to mess with that? And I was like, because I'm the best and I'm going to continue being the best. But the other one was like, sure. Well, let's make sure that your CPP knows that anything within that 5 years is warranted for you. Okay. They're not going to cover labor, but so what? Let's go back to keys. I was going to say, I haven't made the signs for it yet, but it's surely something that's like at the top level of my thinking. Like I'm just getting ready to walk into that space for sure.
Yeah, I got to just sell my shop owner, boss on it. I've already ran it past him a few times. Pretty hesitant.
I understand why, but then again, I don't.
More and more shops are going 33 or 36, so it doesn't separate us anymore. It used to be most were 12-12. The vast majority of them were 12-12. And we're at 336, so that was a big gap. More and more are going to 336, so there's no more gap. We got to separate ourselves. You're eyeing up key cutting machines. You mentioned the Triton. I've made it very well known. That is my favorite by far. What ones are catching your eye?
I've heard bad things about X-Force, so I kind of try, just like I try with my parts, to just go for the best the first time around. I was definitely eyeing up the Triton, and then talking to someone that deals in them, he was saying they have that new other, I think it's a Triton or one that's made by Triton that's coming out that's a more portable model that's considerably less costly. I might go for one of those until I cut enough keys to kind of prove the model in this area, because I am in a rural community. That being said, there's a retirement sector like 6 miles away, and that's where most of the clients come from. During the summer, it's booming. during the winter it's pretty dead. So I probably should get a shop in Florida and just move down there but that'd be awesome actually.
I don't know if Florida would be so great. Let's see, like humidity.
My family down there, but I feel like it'd be less rust. I mean, you know about the Rust Belt, but anyway. So yeah,
I do.
I was kind of just thinking about putting it into the budget to get the Triton, and then I kind of heard about this other Triton product and I don't know anything about details yet. I don't know if you do, if you've heard of it.
I've heard about it. I don't know when the release date is.
I heard it was within a month. Maybe that was just the guy that sells it just kind of estimating, but I figured if it is within a month, that probably would be what I would jump for. As long as there isn't like a list of keys that it doesn't compared to the other Triton, like if it's 60% of the price but cuts 40% less keys or something, then I'd probably just go with the full model, because it's just like when I set up my shop and the software that I got, I don't want the beginner package. I want all the features to work. And I feel the same way with my key program and my diagnostic tools. I'm always buying the upgrades to make it as good as it can be. Even sometimes when you don't have a specific reason for doing that other than just having the best.
All right, so you and I think alike. Same thing. Yeah, I don't like messing around. And I really don't like finding out I can't do something because I didn't get what I needed. Tried to, I don't know if cheap out's the right word, but
kind of though.
Yeah.
I know that's the big thing with just the industry in general. There's 4 levels of everything. A lot of software, a lot of packages, and warranties, and this and that. And I'm always just top. My powertrain suppliers put your 3-year gold warranty on there. I know it's good. I know you cover it. Don't even give me a price without it. I don't even care. That's going on the ticket. Same thing with the key machine. But you can buy like an X-Force quite a bit cheaper. But if it breaks down on the first 5 keys that I cut, all of a sudden it won't be worth it. And I sometimes buy used equipment. Don't get me wrong. If you buy quality stuff, I mean, like I have another shop owner friend that just bought like some knockoff 1234 AC machine, and I rolled my eyes so hard. I was like, dude, I paid like half as much for my Mala, and sure, it was a used machine, but all the parts are available and they're super easy to fix. So at the end of the day, who's going to be ahead? So definitely knowing your stuff, even keys. If I knew someone that was decided it wasn't for them, I'd buy their used machine if it was something good.
Yep, definitely. I will say though, there's a lot of shops, and I think locksmiths, legit, that have had extremely good luck with their X-Force. Dolphins, Dolphin 2s, Condor. So yeah, but man, I had a Dolphin, and once I got that Triton, I just stopped using the Dolphin. I kept my key. Actually, I sold that as a set to a friend of mine, and then got the Key Tool Max Pro, which is a lot like the KM100, except obviously for X-Horse. Some similar functions. But yeah, that's a whole new world of stuff. Key program tools, depending on what car lines you're dealing with and what you're going to want to be doing with those car lines. You get into the EEPROM stuff. The AutoFix, does that come with some EEPROM stuff? Does that come? If that's like I'm guessing not.
Oh, yes, it does. Yeah. Sorry, it took me a minute there. It does. It's not, as I understand it, it's not good for reading in circuit. So you have to pull the EEPROM chip out.
The only person I know that can read in circuit with any of the Autel stuff is Brian Pollock.
There you go, yeah.
So everybody else, we take it out of circuit, but he somehow can do it. He won't tell us how he does it.
I haven't used it yet for that function. I did take, at ASC, I took Mike Christopherson's class, I think. Is that his name?
At ASTE?
Yeah.
I can't say for certain he was there. I wasn't there, but...
Yeah, it was at ASC last September. That was a class that he had. And it was kind of like drinking out of a fire hose for someone who hasn't been in the automotive trade for super long. But it is something where I always try to be cutting edge. So I was like, this is on the list of classes. This is a good class. A lot of hands-on stuff. You can play with the AO32, and which would be an awesome tool to get for play with some of those things hands-on, and definitely... It's
archaic, but sometimes that freaking thing works.
It works well for in circuit. I mean, that's the cool thing about it for sure. But
the thing with the in circuit though is there's a lot of really smart people that do a lot of EEPROM, and they would urge you not to read in circuit. So I don't know. I mean, I just, you know me, just try to figure it out on the fly, right or wrong.
Whatever fixes the vehicle for the client in the end. I used a PCM cloning tool the other day, and I was like, I'm sure there would have been a slightly less expensive way to do it maybe. And I got my terminal kit out, and I didn't even have the right terminals for that PCM, which was annoying. So I just chopped a harness off a junkyard car and made a bench harness and
Made it work, yeah.
it fixed the car. And that's the end goal. Is, I mean, obviously not, you don't want to cut corners in an area, but if you're reading in circuit or not reading in circuit, as long as you're providing a finished product that's correct. I mean, I'm not super steady with soldering yet. That's another whole world. I mean, you can take whole classes on soldering. That was what my dad was into. It's a whole nother, I mean, there's advanced soldering classes. And if I took all the classes, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. So
Yeah, there's locksmith conferences. And then I was at STX. I'll probably mess up his name. Sorry. Kevin Suddarp did all day soldering and EEPROM. Freaking phenomenal. I kid you not. It was freaking phenomenal. Honestly, he could really very reasonably do it all day soldering. I'm not kidding you. And it would not be boring. And all day EEPROM. No problems.
I'm gonna write that down because I wish I could have went to STX. It's just one of those things where I'm 2 years into the automotive industry and I can't go to every expo. I want to.
I mean, I think he's looking to start doing it more and more. The logistics of it make it rough because he brings in the soldering stations, the hot air stations, the microscopes, it's so much stuff.
That was part of the STX, or was there like an extra?
They could have, but I think they helped him out. I hope they did. I guess I shouldn't say. I can't imagine they wouldn't have. Kevin's shrewd, so he's hopefully not going to take a loss on it. I guess I caught day 2. So he had presented her first half of the day as soldering, second half is EEPROM. So I caught his second time through, and I thought he did so great. And that was the second time he ever taught it. And I just thought he was super well spoken. Of course, knows the stuff. He's teaching it in a way like he's got a method to his madness. Like he's got a path that he wants to take people on. And I think it's a very reasonable path. Like he's asking me to criticize it and I can't. It's like my favorite thing to do is criticize things. I can't. Maybe not my favorite thing, but it's fun. I criticize myself. Are you kidding? But it was excellent. If he can somehow, some way, figure out a way to be able to take this on the road, and the guy's got a shop, he's got a family with that in mind. But if he can start hitting certain conferences or people can get enough interest and money to afford to bring him in and the stuff to do it, I can't, if it's something you want to get into, I can't recommend it enough.
You're really making me wish I went to STX now.
I mean, you should have went. Pedro De La Torre was there. Justin Morgan was there.
His soldering, he was doing a Zoom soldering class that I was in. Not as good as in person, but it certainly is good still. Pedro was, yeah.
Pedro's a phenomenal trainer.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tommy Oliva was there. There's a lot of reasons you should have been there. Could have hang out with us.
Would have been fun. Yeah.
We could have stuck you with a bill for dinner or something.
Yeah, I know that's what all my shop owner friends do to me too.
So it's been normal.
It's always my turn to pay. They're like, since it's your turn, we're getting shrimp and lobster, whatever.
When it gets about time for the check to show up, you reach like you're going to pay. You reach for your wallet, and then you just make sure your eyes get really big and round and go, oh my God, I forgot my wallet. And you just look mortified. It only works a few times and then people start catching on. But
right. I've kind of figured it doesn't look very professional, and I've always wanted to present myself in a professional a way as I can. But I get the point. I mean, some of these guys are really mess with you. But no, it'd be going to more events would be great. This past year, I was able to I did Vision last September. Or no, AST last September, then Vision just recently.
Yeah, March.
And those two I definitely want to put on my calendar just to go to every year. And then there's one in Michigan here that is way smaller, but they still bring in a lot of the good trainers. So it seems to be growing. There's just not as much excitement about automotive in Michigan, which is dumb because they make all the cars here. It seems like when you go to the expo, it's just kind of like doled down. No one's really that engaged. I don't think there was an EEPROM class. There was some good diagnostic classes. John Thornton comes, some good stuff there, but some good ownership classes, actually, shop owner classes, advisor classes this past year. But
I remember hearing a lot of good things, though, about the Auto Value show in Michigan, especially the one in Michigan.
It's a good show.
Wasn't there another one in like the Chicagoland area? And that wasn't nearly as good.
I don't know.
But the one in Michigan, that was the one to go to.
It's definitely...
Well, I think Thornton would present there. And then a friend of mine, Dan Baumhart, and Ryan Koyman, like that was one of those ones to go to in their minds.
Yeah.
That's saying something, I think. That's saying something.
Yeah, Ryan's a good dude. Definitely know Ryan a little bit.
Yeah, just don't tell him that. His head just...
I know. He's been out to my shop, which is kind of cool because they wanted some hybrid stuff for research and development stuff. And so we have, for them being in the middle of nowhere, it's kind of something. Ryan comes to your shop. But no, I like him. I appreciate sometimes he does the monthly training in our area. Like sometimes he's training that. There's other guys too, but that's kind of cool. I mean, sometimes it's a refresher. Sometimes you're maybe already familiar with it to some extent, but it's a good thing to just keep on the throttle with training for sure.
Absolutely. So what else is on your list of key stuff?
Like things to buy? That's a good question. I need to figure out like where I want to get some inventory from.
Yeah.
And get an order together where I'm not paying shipping on one key fob. Because that way.
Yeah.
That's a big step. And
I think Key Innovations is right there in New York.
So that's something, getting at least the common big three key fobs on the shelf would probably be a good thing to do.
Yeah. I get a fair bit of stuff from Nitrous Keys, and I get a fair bit of stuff from American Key Supply. They're kind of my favorites.
Yeah, I have some nitrous fobs here.
Both of them are in Vegas. But yeah, I'm just thinking like proximity.
Well, I mean, they can all UPS. I mean, so it shouldn't be a big deal. It's just definitely knowing. It's kind of one of those things, because if it takes forever to get a key fob, then that kind of takes the convenience factor away. But at the same point, you don't want to buy 10 of every key fob and then find out that there's only 3 that you're using.
Yeah, I keep the ready-to-go keys, whether they've got branding on them or not. Like they say Ford on them or have a Chevy badge on them or not. You can buy them in quantities of 10 a shot, and they have the transponders and they're ready to go. And you just got to cut them. I did load up on the nitrous system where the blades, you assemble the blades with the heads and then the appropriate transponder, really for CYA. And that's exactly what they do. A lot of times they bail you out. Initially, it's not all that inexpensive, but over time, works out pretty well. I did that early on because I didn't know what I wanted. And then you find out that there are certain keys then you can buy ready to go cheaper than the assembled key. But really, the assembled keys, it's kind of like that Friday afternoon thing. Somebody's lost their keys, just need an extra key, don't want to wait. You can give them the 2 different prices, and they're like, I can leave that one right now. Yep. Boom, boom, done. Stock up on X-Horse Super Chips. I've had extremely good luck with those, so that you can clone. You're going to need a X-Horse tool, like a Key Tool Max, Key Tool Plus, something of that nature. Not every key. This doesn't work on every key, but a lot of them. And we're talking bladed keys here, not proxy. Bladed keys that basically, it's just like TPMS. It clones the same freaking thing. Clones the chip. And you can cut it and they can leave and it'll work in the car. You don't need the car there. Doesn't always work. Sometimes you need the car there. Specifically, like ID46 chips. A lot of times you need the car there to read off the transceiver, and then sometimes there's an online calculation. But other than that, there's a lot of keys you can just clone and boom, done, ship. Early on, I got a fair number of the nitrous keys to assemble, and then X-Horse Super Chips.
Okay. I know I've ordered so far just like OE specific nitrous keys or whatever, like the duplicate.
Those have been really good to me. I don't know about you, but I've had pretty darn good luck with them.
Yeah, they seem great. The biggest thing is just, do you inventory one for everything or whatever? But, for the cars that I've been experimenting with, it has been great, except for that stupid Ford. But that thing it isn't even fair to say that didn't program a key, because for all we know, the module that the keys get the immobilizer may be shot. Because I got the European key and that one doesn't program either. So now I'm really learning about keys on that one. It's the vehicle problem.
Yeah, sometimes I trick myself into thinking I kind of know what's going on. Like I know to make sure it's got the right transponder, the FCC ID, and I'm paying attention to all the details, and I still screw up.
It's definitely part of the game. I mean, with the key wheel, because I can show you two Ford key fobs that have the same FCC ID, and I still don't understand why one is Euro and one is American. But regardless of that, the different part number, and for whatever reason, my American-made Ford has a Euro transponder or a Euro immobilizer in it. That's what I've been told anyway. Doesn't surprise me. There's probably some other European things in there too or something. I don't know. It's just it's been not just make a racial comment or anything. It's just the car. It acts a little bit like maybe a older BMW hybrid or something. Like.
So yeah, I don't know. You'll be well on your way. You just find it's kind of a different world, just like programming and in general, like module programming or diagnostics. You just find that you need different tools for different reasons, and depending on what your factory tool setup is and time, how many keys are you doing? Some of these tools can skip some of the timers, not always, but sometimes. And of course the VSPs and getting information for D1s and all that. But that's probably just kind of slowly going to go away. And it's not like filling out the D1s is so freaking hard anymore. Customers give you the information and you can usually get done what you need to get done. I'm not sure how that's going to all play out, or when is that finally going to start really kicking in? But yeah, you just find you're buying more and more tools, but you're the shop owner, right? So you get to sign the checks.
That's just the name of the game. Definitely tooling up, and the only question you really need to ask before buying a tool, I'm not always good at this, but will it make me money? Will it? I don't know. Sometimes having another scan tool or another whatever, sometimes you don't think all that through, but it's a constant game of buying tools. The tool budget it's a big part of doing business.
I struggle with that question, one, probably because I'm biased and I want the tool. Two, I do feel like there is a very legitimate argument, not mine. I didn't create this argument, or first person I read or / heard it from was Steve Brotherton. It can get very difficult to track how much money a tool makes you if it can be responsible for bringing in work that doesn't require the tool. Because you have whatever tool, just pick whatever it is. You bought an Auto Pro pad, and because you had that, it let you program a key that either no one else could or you could just do it rapidly. You got the job done. The customer's happy, and now they're bringing in non-key work. Would you have gotten the work without the tool? Probably not. Now you're getting all that work. You don't need the tool to do that work anymore, but that was what opened the gates. That can be very convoluted. Like I don't want to make that sound like game, set, match, buy the tool, but it's something to consider when you start. And I guess I don't want to speak for you either, but I feel like the shop I work at is built on capability. Our reputation is, of course, quality. We're working hard on quality, but also capability. We can get it done. And so that wins us a lot of work that I don't think we'd normally get without that. And I'm not saying that's the right way to do things. You got to figure it out, right? Everybody's kind of got to figure out their path.
It's a good argument.
Yeah, I just feel like there's a strong argument to that where you can get it done because of the tool, and it opens up the potential for more work that's not related to the tool.
Even sometimes, take that a little further, even on the same car, they come in with whatever, car fails to start concern. If you can solve that for them, then when the car needs brakes or ball joints or a steering rack or whatever, like all of a sudden you got that obstacle out of the way. And like you said, they're going to buy that other work for sure. And And if you didn't have the tool in the first place, then the car wouldn't be there. So that's a good, definitely. I mean, I can think of scenarios where that's definitely played out. That plays out all the time, honestly.
At least keep it in the back of your mind. Do you want to lay everything on the line with it? No. But I mean, it's like, I got the money. I can afford to gamble. I can afford to gamble with this. And okay, this month, I have the money. I could go buy this tool. I could go buy this whiz-bang key cutting machine. But really, we need this powertrain table. So all right, I'm going to go get the powertrain table. And then next time, it's like, okay, got enough money here. I can gamble this money away. If I just didn't have it, shop's okay. Bills are getting paid. We're fine. Still have reserves, all that. Now I'm going to get the key cutting machine, even though I'm not positive about the ROI. And then you find out a lot of times, like, when we got this stuff, I didn't think there was going to be much of an ROI on it. Seriously, I didn't think it was going to be a profit center. When we got the ADAS stuff, I expected that to be a profit center, which is kind of ridiculous that I would ever think that way, because usually when I think that way, I get punished by the universe. But I expected that to be a profit center, and it ended up, but keys, I didn't expect that to be a profit center. I was hoping at best a wash, at best. Just really, it's curing me of some annoyances with customers and or shops and that didn't have the second key for when I programmed, namely Ford, programmed the new module. They didn't have the second key. So then, boom, I could just cut and program the key. Everybody's happy. I don't have to wait for running to the dealer or the hardware store or whatever to try to get a key and hope it's right. And I just do it. So it's really selfish, but it ends up, is it lucrative? I don't know if I would say that, but it's a profit center. Certainly more lucrative than some of the other things we do. Not as lucrative as a lot of stuff we do, but it's a profit center now. We're definitely doing key quotes daily. Every day there's a key quote getting done. And then today I did 3 keys. And I think tomorrow I saw on the schedule a couple of keys. And I would say over the past couple of years, it's just building and building to where it'll be a daily thing regularly. Like if I have a day where I don't do a key, it'll probably be really odd. I guess not to be jumping all around, but like ADAS started out whereas a couple times a week. Now it's odd if it isn't a couple times a day. And that's nothing compared to what some people are doing, right?
That depends on your location too, because Q, thankfully, we don't see a lot of it yet because we're not set up for it. So it becomes a big deal. But the biggest thing is just being educated enough to know when you need it so you can send the vehicle somewhere else that has it.
Because of programming, being able to do module programming, especially cars that weren't supported by dealers locally, I developed a pretty good relationship with 2-3 collision shops that are nearby. And when the ADAS stuff started becoming a thing, I immediately had 3, now 4 collision shops that regularly send us stuff for calibrations. It's kind of one of those things, right? I think I've said it before, and I'm sorry that I repeat a lot of crap, but I think it is a mixture of things that the city that the town that the shop is in is not that big. 20,000 tops. Population 20,000 tops. But we're also an hour away from a metropolitan area to the north, and we're an hour away from a metropolitan area to the south. So when our shop gets into this stuff, it kind of dominates the market. We corner the market. Not everybody has that. A lot of times if they want to get into ADAS, there's already 3 other shops getting into it, and a couple of the collision shops just do it themselves, and there's 2 or 3 mobile guys. I mean, that's rough. What do you do? So how do you find your niche?
Yeah, there's definitely something I was hearing from one of my commercial parts people in this area about keys too. Like apparently one of our local towns has multiple mobile key outfits. Whatever. I mean, I don't know how that'll affect the end game of this at all, but probably it's not going to really affect too much of my market when it comes to the preventative maintenance, adding a second key fob.
Exactly.
And I don't want to be really dealing with the client that will just lock themselves out of their car or whatever, like some of these mobile key outfits might be. So it's probably not a bad thing really either.
And what I ran into, and it probably just pure luck, is the 2 mobile locksmiths in town. They're done with cars. They want nothing to do with cars. The immobilizer systems they don't want to invest that kind of money into tooling to do it. They didn't either have the time nor inclination. They will stick to their commercial and home accounts, house accounts. I suppose it'd be commercial accounts and then home work for people's houses and stuff like that. They want nothing to do with the cars. So a lot of them are not, there's two of them. They gave me a lot of their inventory on just keys and wafers and sold me some of their tools cheap. And they just asked me if I had any interest in getting into anything outside of cars. And I said, abso-freaking-lutely not. So I've maybe only been asked twice by people if I would cut a key for their house. And I said no. Gave them the cards to the two locksmiths. Asked them to please make sure they mentioned our name. Yeah, they refer all the car stuff to us. They just want nothing to do with it. That's another thing to keep in mind. Depending on the situation, if they're not advertising cars hard, they may not want to. They maybe do it just because they feel obligated to. They find out your shop does it. They might just be like, you know what, you can have it. I was looking at buying this new tool and it's thousands of dollars I really don't want to spend. I will send you all the car stuff if you promise not to get into anything else other than car stuff.
Yeah, which, I mean, like you said, I would have no interest. Zero. I was in construction before I got into this trade. No, thank you. I don't want to deal with houses or their owners.
Yeah, they're like, if we lock ourselves out of our house, will you come get us in? I'll be like, can I break a window? I was like, I have no interest whatsoever.
No way. Definitely. That's one area where I've mostly tried to stay in my lane for sure. Yeah, I mean, there definitely is people, when I know there's people in the automotive industry that don't want to deal with computers still, and they send stuff to me. They don't want to deal with hybrids. They send stuff to me. Definitely same concept, just a different medium.
It's no different than a lot of shops don't want to deal with medium duty or heavy duty. You send it to somebody that does. I don't think there's any shame in a lot of this stuff, knowing what you're equipped for, trained for, capable of. I don't think anyone has to feel bad about it. It's better than the ones that are diving into it and relying heavily on database diagnostics without having the proper tooling or training.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah, they're hoping the statistics work out in their favor and they get it right. When somebody's just, you know what, we don't want to get involved, take it here, that should be looked upon very fondly.
Yeah, I think just a community of people that do different things. One of my buddies in our local shop owner group that has an ADAS calibration center. If a vehicle has a lane departure issue or something, it comes in, or front radar or something, I'll send it to him. So here's a number of someone that will get you fixed up. And the other thing, like you mentioned, database diagnostics, like I guess I have been in that situation at some points, but I'd rather go by knowing the system if you at all can. Like usually, yeah, I mean, whatever system you're diagnosing.
Well, yeah, and there's a difference between going about it conventionally, kind of coming up empty, kind of being, I am wildly unfamiliar with this, and breaking down, going to the database, getting some answers or potential answers, and then finding the issue. And now that has educated you.
You're applying common sense to the database rather than just...
Instead of the database making you an artificial superhero, you've actually learned something from it. And it may be how the system works. It may be how to test something. It may be just, it shows you there's a gap in your knowledge and then you need to go find a way to fill it, be it training, online training, going to a training conference, going to a training class, hitting up a whatever forum of other professionals that kind of know the system better and asking some questions and trying to pay it forward. It's not fundamentally bad. It's just, I think it gets abused. It becomes a GPS system.
The biggest thing about the database is, I guess, what part of the database you use. Instead of going to the quick fixes, like I find myself going to the wiring diagrams and, okay, that's how that system works. It's the same as the other system, whatever. Make some connections in your mind or ask some questions, like you said. And I think it's a great learning tool, but like you said, it's like, well, 3,000 times it was such and such. And so they go change that part, and that's when you went wrong. Some podcast just had a topic about that caught I didn't listen to it yet, but it caught my eye because that was what doubting myself or something. And that's something I really apply to my diagnostics, whatever I'm doing. usually you have a pretty good idea of what it is when you start, and you got to keep that from taking over while you prove it.
I mean, that screams like something Sean would do.
Yeah.
The Diagnostic podcast, Automotive Diagnostic podcast. Yeah, he's a loser. I'm just kidding.
You're gonna have Tracy edit that out. No, I don't have myself having time to listen to all the automotive podcasts all the time, but sometimes there's titles that catch your eye, and that one resonated with something I would have said, because I just pulled a vehicle in yesterday and I was like, it needs a timing chain, and it did need a timing chain, but had I not done the cam and crank and done the proper, I could have definitely missed something. So try to.
Sean's great.
Yeah,
definitely one of the ones I listen to. I mean, where else am I going to get material from? Oh man,
that's great.
Well, man, I really appreciate you coming on.
Enjoyed being here.
I hope I answered some of your questions.
I wish I would have had more formulated questions, but I'm, like you said, sometimes like the person that needs to get into it a little bit too. So the next thing is definitely getting I want to get a cutter before I start saying we can make your keys, because you got to be able to cut. But I've been able to play with some loaner cutters that we have, and if a family member has a specific cutter that you want to know how to program or whatever, be like, I'll add a key for free or whatever. That's something an older technician buddy of mine that has really mentored me in diesel specifically, because I do diesel stuff too some, and like he had the Bronco, and I was like, I will just program that key for free. I want to know how to use the tool that I have. And so it was super cool thing, because hopefully giving back to, he's actually a former instructor, and he's a parts vendor now, but he has I've just learned a lot from him, and I want to give back to that too. So it's pretty cool to learn the FDRS key programming system for sure. And it's so simple.
I kind of like FDRS.
It's so simple after you figure it out. Getting it set up the first time was a little nightmare, because it would glitch out, and then it wouldn't give you an error code. It just would crash, and doing a repair and install it the second install worked fine, and I still don't really know why. But
this reminds me of TLC.
Yeah, they all have some similarities, don't they? IDS was the same way for a while. I had to uninstall it, run the cleanup tool, reinstall it. Now it works. Why? I don't know. Fixed anyway. It's kind of like cars. I mean, sometimes you got to program, like you said, the keys. You got to program them twice or 3 times to make them go through. Don't always know why.
Yes, sir. I don't know.
No, I've enjoyed.
It's probably operator error, but
it can be
sometimes.
But there's so many other things that it can be too. I mean, for me, it's often operator error. Whatever. I'm not perfect.
I just assume it's operator error if I'm involved.
Well, and that's the thing. The first time I used TLC, doing it wrong so many times, and whatever, it was, like you said, you assume it's operator error until proven that it's not operator error, right? And I feel like it might not be the healthiest way to think, but I know as a technician, I mean, I own a shop too, but as a technician, that does help me. If you're hit program and it fails, you're like, okay, what did I do wrong? And 40 to 50% of the time, you're going to fix it by asking that question. So,
yes, I'm jealous of people that are pretty confident in their abilities and assume that it's not them, that it is the car or the part or the tool. I'm not that guy. I usually assume it's something I did or didn't do, didn't follow the directions properly, or skipped a step or ignored a step, something like that.
Yeah, we can all fall into that trap, but it's just, I don't know. The one thing I've found is just being fairly new to the automotive industry is just try to soak up, network, and learn where you can. And if you make a mistake, just admit it too. I mean, you don't leave mistakes, or you undo them for sure. But sometimes it's with a programming issue, especially sometimes it's ask in a group or something or a forum, has someone used this software before, and someone's like, yeah, you idiot, you got to press such and such a button, or you got to put your password in that box instead of that box. And I'm like, duh, why did I know that? Right. But
man, what is it? I'm on a run here with guests that just have these final words that make it just a perfect bow. They just tie a perfect bow on the end of an episode. That was great. Really appreciate you coming on, sir.
Absolutely. I've enjoyed being here, and good to get to know you a little bit too.
Oh, I'm sorry for that, but
yeah, I mean, I could say the same. Some days I don't. If I listen to my fans on my social channels for the shop, they would say I'm an idiot too. It is what it is.
What's it like having fans? That's awesome.
I don't know that I call them fans, but.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Like for usual, if you like what you hear, don't like what you hear, have ideas for the podcast, or would like to come on, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I am easy to find. Just ask the hackers. You can email me at mattfonslopodcast@gmail.com. You can also shoot me a social media message. Thank you to NAPA Autotech Training for sponsoring, and thank you to the Aftermarket Radio Network for making this all possible. And until next time, take care.
You've been listening to Matt Fonslow, diagnosing the aftermarket A to Z on the Aftermarket Radio Network. Follow Matt on your favorite listening app. He's very interested in what you have to say. Let him know what you'd like him to cover and come on the show. Matt is all for advancing the aftermarket. Find Matt Fonslow on social media and connect or on aftermarketradionetwork.com.